There is a particular kind of silence that only a Scorpio woman knows how to use. It is not the silence of someone who has nothing to say. It is not the silence of someone who didn't notice. It is not the silence of forgiveness, or confusion, or indifference. It is something far more deliberate than any of those things. It is the silence of a woman who has already seen everything, already understood everything, and has decided, with complete clarity, exactly what she is going to do about it. And she is in no rush. That is the part most people never understand until it is far too late. You will not know when a Scorpio woman finds out. That is the first thing you need to understand. There will be no dramatic confrontation at the door. There will be no tearful phone call in the middle of the night. There will be no message sent in anger that she will later regret. When she finds out. And she always finds out. She will look at you the same way she looked at you the day before. She will speak to you in the same tone. She will sit across from you at dinner and ask you how your day was, and she will listen to your answer. And she will nod. And inside she will be filing every single word you say into a place in her mind where she keeps things that matter. She is not pretending nothing happened. She is preparing. And there is a difference between those two things that most people are not equipped to understand. I knew the moment something shifted. I need you to understand that about me before I tell you anything else. I am not someone who misreads rooms. I am not someone who ignores the feeling in my chest when something is wrong. I have spent my entire life learning how to read people. Not because I was taught to, but because something in me demanded it. From the time I was very young, I understood that what people say and what people mean are almost never the same thing. I learned to watch the space between the words. I learned to notice what someone does with their hands when they answer a question. I learned to pay attention to the things people choose not to say. This is not paranoia. This is just how I am built. And it is exactly why the moment things changed with him, I felt it before I could name it. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I had come home later than usual, and the apartment had a stillness to it that felt different from ordinary quiet. He was in the kitchen. He smiled when he saw me. It was a real smile, or at least it looked real. But something in the air had shifted in a way I could not immediately place, and I filed that away without saying a word. I kissed him on the cheek. I asked what he had made for dinner. I sat down at the table, and I ate, and I talked, and I laughed at something he said. And the entire time, somewhere deep inside me, something was already beginning to move. Something patient and precise and completely invisible to him. That is the thing about being a Scorpio woman. The investigation does not announce itself. It simply begins. The first thing I noticed was his phone. Not because he was suddenly protective of it in some obvious, panicked way. It was more subtle than that. It was the angle at which he held it when he was reading something. It was the way he would finish a message and place the phone face down on the table without any of the natural casualness that used to accompany that gesture. Small things. Things that most people would never notice. Things that I noticed immediately and stored without comment. I did not ask him about it. I did not mention what I had observed. I simply continued being exactly who I always was around him. And I watched. Within a week, I had noticed 7 separate things that did not fit the pattern of who he had been for the 3 years we were together. A new cologne that appeared without explanation and disappeared just as quickly. A night out with friends that ended 2 hours later than it ever had before. Accompanied by a story that had one too many specific details in it. The kind of details people add when they have rehearsed what they are going to say. A change in the way he initiated affection. Slightly more deliberate, slightly more performed, like someone who is compensating for something they feel guilty about. None of these things were proof. I knew that. But I also knew that I was not wrong. I have never been wrong about a feeling like this. Not once in my life. And I was not about to start second-guessing myself now. I want to be clear about something. What I felt during those weeks was not hysteria. It was not jealousy without cause. It was not the irrational anxiety of someone who has been hurt before and expects to be hurt again. It was something much colder and much more precise than any of those things. It was focus. It was the specific, unshakable focus of a woman who has decided that she is going to understand exactly what is happening before she makes a single move. Because that is the code I live by. I do not act on suspicion. I act on certainty. And in order to reach certainty, I was willing to be patient for as long as it took. Here is the first thing people get wrong about Scorpio women. They think we are reactive. They think that because our emotions run deep, they also run wild. They imagine us as volatile. Passionate, yes, but uncontrolled. Dramatic. Prone to outbursts and scenes and ultimatums. And I understand why people think that, because when a Scorpio woman finally does act, the force of it can look like something that exploded suddenly. But it did not explode suddenly. It was built. Slowly, carefully, with complete intention. The explosion is just the last 5% of a process that began long before anyone else was paying attention. The 95% that came before it is invisible. And that invisible part is where all the real power lives. I did not go through his phone. I want to be precise about that. I did not sneak around in the way people imagine when they picture someone who suspects their partner. That is not how I operate. What I did was far simpler and far more devastating than that. I paid attention. I paid the kind of attention that most people are incapable of sustaining. Not for days, but for weeks. I remembered everything. The exact words he used when he described his Thursday. The name he mentioned once and never mentioned again. The slight hesitation before he answered a question that should have had no hesitation in it at all. I kept all of it in a place inside me where nothing gets lost, and I waited for the picture to become complete. The night I got the confirmation, I was not even looking for it in the way you might expect. I had not set a trap. I had not hired anyone or asked anyone or done anything that could be described as active investigation. What happened was simply that the truth revealed itself the way truth always eventually does, through a moment of ordinary carelessness on his part. A name on a screen. A message visible for 4 seconds before he turned the phone over. 4 seconds is all I needed. 4 seconds and 23 days of everything I had already collected and stored and held with perfect stillness inside me. In 4 seconds, the picture was complete. And I looked at him. And I smiled, and I said nothing. That smile. I have thought about that smile many times since. It was not a performance. It was not something I manufactured to hide what I was feeling. It was something far stranger and far more honest than that. It was the smile of a woman who has just had every instinct she ever trusted confirmed completely. It was the smile of someone who has been running a very long calculation and has just arrived at the final answer. There was grief in it, yes. There was pain underneath it that I knew would come for me later in private, in the hours when I would let myself feel what I had been holding at a distance for weeks. But in that moment, what I felt most was a kind of terrible clarity. I knew exactly what had happened. I knew exactly what I was going to do. And I knew he had absolutely no idea that any of this was already decided. Here is what most people do not understand about how a Scorpio woman processes betrayal. The pain is real. Do not let anyone tell you that because we are controlled, we do not hurt. The hurt goes deeper in us than it does in most people, precisely because we love deeper than most people are capable of. When a Scorpio woman gives herself to someone, she gives everything. Not the surface things. Not just the affection and the presence and the shared mornings. But the hidden things. The parts she has never shown anyone else. The fears she does not speak out loud. The softness underneath all the strength that very few people ever earn the right to see. When someone betrays that, they are not just breaking a relationship. They are reaching into the most protected place inside her and breaking something there. And that is a different kind of wound entirely. But here is what makes a Scorpio woman different. The wound does not make her small. It does not make her desperate or irrational or prone to decisions she will regret. If anything, the wound makes her more precise. It narrows her focus until there is nothing else but clarity. The pain becomes a kind of fuel. Not the explosive fuel of rage, but the slow-burning fuel of absolute determination. She knows what she lost. She knows who she lost it to. And she knows, with a certainty that goes all the way down to her bones, exactly what she is going to do next. I spent 3 more days acting as though nothing had changed. I want you to understand the discipline that required. Not the discipline of suppressing emotion. I was not suppressing anything. I was holding it. Holding it with both hands, keeping it contained, because I knew that what I did next needed to be done right. Not in a moment of heat. Not in a way that he could deflect or deny or turn around into a conversation about my reaction rather than his actions. I needed to be ready. And being ready for a Scorpio woman means being completely prepared for every possible response, every possible defense, every possible attempt at rewriting what happened. I left nothing to chance. When I was ready, there was nothing left for chance to interfere with. The conversation, when it finally happened, was not a fight. I need to be clear about that, because people always imagine that the moment a Scorpio woman confronts someone who has betrayed her must look like a storm. It did not look like a storm. It was quiet. It was direct. I told him what I knew. I told him exactly how I knew it. I told him what I had noticed, and when I had noticed it, and what I had understood in each moment. I watched his face change as he realized the full scope of what I was describing. Realized that I had known for weeks, that I had sat across from him every single day knowing that everything he thought he had hidden had been visible to me from almost the beginning. I watched him try to find the angle from which he could regain some control of the situation. There was no angle. I had already closed every one of them. What I said at the end of that conversation was simple. I told him that we were done. Not as a threat. Not as an ultimatum with a door left open. As a fact. The way you state a fact about something that has already happened and cannot be undone. I told him that I wanted him to understand something before he left. That the thing he had broken was not something that could be repaired. Not because I was unwilling to try, but because I was not interested in trying. There is a version of this story where a Scorpio woman is consumed by bitterness. where the wound festers and she spends years defined by what was done to her. That is not my version. My version ends with me knowing exactly who I am, exactly what I am worth, and exactly what I will never again accept from anyone. And that is not a sad ending. That is the only ending that makes sense for a woman like me. People ask sometimes how you move on from something like this. They mean it as a gentle question, I think. They want to know if you are okay, if you have processed the pain, if you have found a way to close the wound. And I understand the impulse behind the question, but for a Scorpio woman, the question itself is slightly wrong. We do not move on from things, we move through them. There is a difference. Moving on implies leaving something behind, carrying it at a distance, letting it become smaller as you go. Moving through means taking it fully into yourself, understanding every part of it, extracting everything it has to teach you, and emerging on the other side changed in ways that are permanent and real. I did not leave what happened behind me. I brought it through me. And what came out the other side was something sharper and more complete than what went in. There is something I want to say to anyone who has ever considered betraying a Scorpio woman, or who is in the middle of doing so right now and believes they are managing it. You are not managing it. Whatever you think she does not know, she knows. Whatever you think she has not noticed, she has noticed. Whatever you think you have hidden, you have not hidden. She is watching with the patience of someone who has all the time in the world and the precision of someone who never wastes a moment of it. She is not reacting, because she is not ready yet. And when she is ready, there will be no version of events in which you have the upper hand. There never was. This is the thing about us that the world consistently underestimates. We are not dangerous because we are explosive. We are dangerous because we are thorough. We are dangerous because we feel everything, and we hold it, and we transform it into something that has direction and weight and intention. We do not lash out. We act. And when a Scorpio woman acts, she has already thought through every dimension of what she is doing, every consequence, every outcome. By the time anyone else realizes what is happening, she is already 3 steps beyond it. I rebuilt after him. Of course I did. That was never in question. What people do not realize is that the rebuilding began before he even knew anything was ending. It began in those first days after I understood what was happening, when I started making space inside myself for a future that did not include him. That is the quiet part no one sees. While she is still there, still present, still sharing meals and mornings with someone who has betrayed her, a Scorpio woman is already building the architecture of what comes next. She is already laying the foundation. She is already choosing the materials. By the time she walks out, the structure is already standing. She is simply moving into it. That is the dark side of betraying a Scorpio woman. Not the confrontation. Not the moment of reckoning, dramatic as it might be. The dark side is everything that happens before that moment. Invisible, silent, inevitable. The dark side is the weeks of perfect stillness while she constructs something you cannot see, and cannot stop, and cannot undo. The dark side is that by the time you realize what is happening, it is already done. She is already gone. Not physically. She may still be standing right in front of you. But the version of her that loved you, the version that gave you access to the parts of herself she protects from everyone else, that version has already closed the door. And a Scorpio woman does not open a door she has decided to close. Not for guilt. Not for apology. Not for love. Once it is closed, it is closed. And that is something you will feel for the rest of your life long after she has stopped feeling anything at all. The silence was never emptiness. I need you to understand that before we finish. The silence you experienced. The days when I seemed completely normal, when I gave you no indication that anything was wrong, when I sat beside you and spoke to you and existed in the same space as you without flinching. That silence was not the absence of feeling. It was the presence of every feeling held perfectly still, directed with complete precision toward the only outcome that made sense. I was never unaware. I was never confused. I was never undecided. From the moment I understood what you had done, I knew. And everything that followed was simply the execution of something I had already decided in the space of one evening, in the light of one screen, in the 4 seconds it took for the truth to confirm itself. You thought my calm meant you were safe. That was your mistake. And it was the last one you made with me.